We've got a massive SEC West showdown in Tuscaloosa this Saturday as number 15 Ole Miss takes on number 13 Alabama. This is a game, guys, that has major SEC West implications, possible college football playoff implications, because a loss here would ultimately end Alabama's slim college football playoff hopes before the month of October even begins. So, will Nick Saban lose to a former assistant for the second time this year? Or will we finally see that dominant Alabama team that we've been waiting and expecting to see all year long? That is the question that we're going to answer today. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us today as we break down everything you need to know for Ole Miss and Alabama this Saturday. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 5 years, hit over 62% of our bets last year, hitting 67% of our best bets section this year. So if you want guaranteed winnings, the best customer service that any handicapper in the country can give you, this is the place for you. Go sign up for those picks today for that full year-long subscription. Our Patreon account is also in the description, and our mailing address is there as well, so you can send us some of your team's gear to be represented in every single Gridiron Expert video. So let's take a look at this game, guys. I mean, it's one of those things where it's interesting to see Ole Miss and Alabama as a top 15 showdown where they're separated by 2 spots. You know, Alabama's not number 1, not number 2, not number 3. They're 13th. Ole Miss, 15th. That's not a shock. They are a quality team. And a win here would propel them into the top 10. And a loss here for Alabama would send them spiraling maybe into the outside of the top 20. It's a crazy, crazy world we're living in. This is a very important game for both teams. Ole Miss, a massive win would put them still in the very thick of the SEC West title hunt, would practically eliminate Alabama. Alabama needs this win to keep their playoff hopes alive. And maybe to try to keep the dynasty alive, as some would say. You take a look at this game, guys. Take a look at the offense. And we'll start with Ole Miss. This is an electric offense. Are we surprised? No, not at all. This is a Lane Kiffin-led team. We know the offense was going to be good. What we are surprised by is how they have run their offense this year. If you go back and look at last year, this was more of a run-heavy team. They were extremely balanced, but the run game dominated. And why wouldn't it when you have one of the best running backs in the SEC and in the country in Quinshon Judkins? But he has been a non-factor this year. Now, he's been a little bit beat up. We're aware of that. But you look at this team, averaging over 526 yards per game, 350 of those are through the air. I don't think any of us really expected Ole Miss's passing attack to be featured that heavily or maybe even to be that good this year. We knew Jackson Dart was returning, very veteran quarterback, looked good last year. He's playing solid, already has 213 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground while throwing for 852, 7 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. We know they added in some key transfers at the wide receiver position, but we expected Quinshon Judkins to kind of steal the show once again, and that has not been the case. He only has 145 yards rushing on the year. And again, Jackson Dart is actually the leading rusher for Ole Miss so far this year. This could be the game where Judkins breaks out, maybe has a big day, or maybe Alabama shuts him down and we have to wait another week for that. But regardless, the Ole Miss passing attack has stolen the show. That is the reason for their great success through 3 weeks so far. And again, Jackson Dart has looked phenomenal. They've got a guy like Jordan Watkins leading the way, 19.3 yards per catch. They've got 3 players with over 100 reception yards on the year. Honestly, Ole Miss, guys, owns the significant offensive advantage coming into this game. They own the quarterback edge with Jackson Dart. They own the wide receiver edge. They own the running back edge currently, especially if Judkins can get going. Alabama's offense, we know, is in a complete state of disarray right now. They looked god-awful last week against USF. Nick Saban making the decision to bench Jalen Milroe and start Tyler Buckner, who looked terrible. So then Ty Simpson got put in. He looked terrible. And then after the game, Saban said, all right, guess what? We're going back to Jalen Milroe, who started the first 2 games against Middle Tennessee and Texas. That was the right choice to go back to Jalen Milroe. He is the best quarterback on the roster. And honestly, with the exception of a couple interceptions against Texas, costly ones at that, didn't look all that bad against the Longhorns. He is the guy that gives Alabama the best chance to win week in and week out. There is no doubt about that. This is a team, guys, that are led by Milroe. He had 449 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on the year. Also has rushed for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. 196 passing yards per game, pretty low, not surprised. 172 rushing yards per game. This is an Alabama team that offensively is going to go as Milroe goes. What we mean by that is Obviously, he's got to take better care of the football, but he's got to use his dual threat capability. This is not a team, this is not a quarterback that's going to sit there in the pocket and deliver throw after throw after throw. They are going to have to utilize his strengths. If you go back and watch that Texas game, there were not many runs by Jalen Milroe. It felt like he was confined to the pocket, didn't try to escape, didn't try to have any design quarterback runs. If they want to win, they have to do that. They have to use Jalen Milroe's mobility to their advantage to beat Ole Miss and to continue to win this season, to keep their college football playoff hopes alive. They've got solid running backs as well. Roydell Williams, Jace McClellan, both have rushed for over 100 yards this season. The wide receiver core is not that bad, although I still give the edge to Ole Miss in this game. But ultimately, guys, they have to be more efficient. They've got to utilize their strengths, and they've got to protect their quarterback. All the more reason Milroe needs to run is because Alabama's offensive line has been terrible, already have allowed 12 sacks this year. It's an average of 4 per game. Protect your quarterback, be more efficient, make better decisions, and utilize your strengths, which is currently the run game, not just with your QB, but with your running backs. That's the key for Alabama. Defensively, Ole Miss, you look at them. It seems like the recipe's pretty simple, right? You've got a quarterback who might be a little bit rusty, didn't even play a single snap last week against USF. You got a quarterback in an offense in a complete state of disarray, really has no identity. So defensively, it's like, look, if we can pressure Jalen Milroe, if we can get after him and force him into a few mistakes like he had against Texas, we can win this game. And we know we can win in Tuscaloosa. Ole Miss has done it before. Yes, it was with completely different players and completely different coaches, but they can do it. And we just saw Texas do it 2 weeks ago. So, Bryant-Denny Stadium is not, invincible. It's not unbeatable. Ole Miss knows that. And Ole Miss knows they can come close to beating Alabama. They know they can hang with them because they did it just last year. That game coming down to the wire in Oxford in a 30-24 loss. You take a look at the defense for Ole Miss. This is a team that already has 10 sacks on the year. 10 sacks on the year. So they can pressure Alabama. I believe that defensive line is going to go after the offensive line hard. Keep in mind also, Ole Miss, who's their defensive coordinator? Pete Golding, who was the defensive coordinator at Alabama last year. He knows his Alabama team. He knows these Alabama players. He knows his Alabama offense. That's a huge advantage for the Rebels heading into this game. No doubt about it. When you look at the defense again, 350 yards per game, that's what they're giving up. 227 through the air, 123 on the ground. Again, the key is to pressure Jalen Milroe and to force him to win the game solely through the air. Force him to throw. Don't allow any of the running backs to get going. Don't allow him to escape the pocket. Do exactly what Texas did, and that was consistent pressure, collapsing the pocket, and making him feel like he had nowhere to go, because in reality, he didn't. Force him to win the game through the air. You want to surrender a few big runs here and there, that's okay. But force Jalen Milroe to beat you with his arm. He can do it. He has that talent. I'm not saying he doesn't, but that is the best recipe for Ole Miss to get this win. You take a look again. He struggled against Texas. Milroe did. He legitimately did. And you look at Ole Miss's defense the rest of the way. This is a team that allowed 307 passing yards to Georgia Tech. This is a team that allowed 231 yards to Tulane, a backup quarterback through the air. So this is a team that, again, secondary-wise, it's their weakness, you would argue, but is now going to benefit from a weak passing attack. So which passing defense shows up for Ole Miss? Which passing defense shows up for Ole Miss, and can they generate enough pressure to do exactly what Texas did 2 weeks ago? Alabama, defensively, is the strength of the team. Defense wins championships. Defense is going to get Alabama to where they need to be, possibly. They're allowing 309.7 yards per game, 190 through the air, 120 on the ground. Not bad marks at all. What Alabama needs to make sure they do is make sure this isn't a breakout run game for Quinshon Judkins or whoever is going to run the ball for Ole Miss. That's what they have to make sure. This cannot be the game where Ole Miss goes out there and finally finds their rushing identity and goes to town, or the big breakout game for Judkins this year. If you look at what Alabama's done, they allowed 177 rushing yards to USF last week in a game that was very wet, rainy, bad weather, is what it is. 177 rushing yards to them. They did a great job of shutting down the pass in that game, and understandably so. Would have been concerned if they didn't. But against Texas, Alabama allowed 349 passing yards to Quinn Ewers. So I ask you, Alabama, which defense shows up? Is it the one that just got gassed for nearly 200 rushing yards against USF, or is it the one that got gassed to the air by one of the best quarterbacks in the country? Ole Miss has the ability to do both. Ole Miss has the ability to torch you through the air like they've done all year long with Jackson Dart. They have the ability to beat you on the ground, especially with as strong as their offensive line is, and as strong as their running back core is, and that slim dual threat ability that Jackson Dart also has. He's the leading rusher for the team right now, albeit not by much. That's the question for Alabama. Can they show up and play a complete game? Can they play a full, complete game? Not just shutting down the run, but allowing the pass to go crazy or vice versa. You've got to be able to not just shut down both, but play a complete game where you limit both. That is what Alabama and the Crimson Tide have to do. So what's going to happen, guys? Bryant-Denny Stadium, Saturday afternoon. This is massive. We got so many big games on this week. I feel like this one's kind of getting pushed away. We're not talking about it nearly as much as we should. It's massive because if Ole Miss wins this game, it's going to blow up. Everything's going to blow up. Alabama's out of the playoff race. They're going to crumble. They're going to fall. The talks of the dynasty being over are going to be raging all weekend long and all the next week. This is big for both teams. And you look at it, this is a great opportunity for Ole Miss, right? They nearly won last year in Oxford. They now have a better offense than Alabama. Alabama is reeling after a horrible performance against USF and still trying to find their offensive identity. Pete Golding is now on the staff at Ole Miss, as we mentioned, a guy that knows his Alabama team and knows his offense inside and out. This is a great opportunity for Lane Kiffin to snag a win over his former coach, or his former mentor. Ultimately, guys, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I know a lot of people want it to happen and believe it can happen, but I think Alabama shows up. I think Jalen Milroe comes out with a fire lit in him. He goes, really, you benched me against USF? I understand why Nick Saban did it, but now Jalen Milroe has something to prove. This Alabama team as a whole, I think, has something to prove. And I don't think Nick Saban's going to allow his team to come out flat. I don't think they're going to allow this team to come out and struggle. I believe Alabama comes out there with a passion and a fire lit under their butts. And they come out there and they don't torch Ole Miss. They're not going to dominate Ole Miss by any means. This will be a relatively close game. But Alabama will get the win over the Rebels. I can actually see this being a 10-point victory for the Crimson Tide at the least. I'm going to say about 10 points or less. But Alabama gets the win. They survive, and while it's not in dominant fashion, they crush the talks of the dynasty ending for now. They keep their slim college football playoff hopes alive, and the road to the SEC championship, the road in a wide-open SEC West, continues for Alabama. In theory, it continues for Ole Miss, too. Only one conference loss for them. This is a massive one for both teams, and Alabama, we believe, will come on top. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and, of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Again, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 5 years, hitting 67% on our best bet section this year. Our picks are already out for this week. Go sign up for those today. Check out the Patreon account. Check out the mailing address to send us some of your team's gear to be featured in every single video. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.